Hi, everybody. Welcome to the local music scene and our kind of live sessions that we're starting again back on Facebook and YouTube. We have Dan from DansTunes here, DansTunes Seattle, if you know them on Instagram. And I'm just really excited because we're both creatives in this whole endeavor of like interviewing musicians and loving local music. And so I'm really excited to have you on and to like talk about it with somebody that understands.
Heck yes, I know. I've been talking to a lot more local journalists lately too, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
yes, like, oh my God, you guys get it. And we can like teach each other like about new bands and also like fun words because we all love words.
Exactly. Yeah. I love it so much. We've been kind of running into each other at several local shows lately. And so I just thought it would be awesome to have somebody that's kind of like-minded in the area and kind of give another view of this whole like kind of job that we've decided for ourselves. And and so just kind of going into it, can you kind of give a little bit about yourself and like how you got into it?
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, what you said about creating a job for yourself is 100% what I did. I moved to Seattle from Michigan in April of 2017. I started going to a lot of shows, talking to musicians, and everyone just kept talking to me about how fragmented the scene was. So I started thinking about like why, and everyone used that specific word too. Like everyone was like fragmented, and I was like, this is weird. Like what? Like if people were like, oh, like this scene's rough, or like I don't know a lot of people, or like whatever, I'd be like, okay. But everyone said fragmented, and I was like, weird. Like why? So I just started thinking about it, and I was actually at the Nirvana exhibit at Mopop, and they had this like plaque that was like the 5 things that made Nirvana ripe to like become Nirvana.
Yeah.
And the first one was a disgruntled youth. The second, third, and fourth, I don't remember, but the 5th one was the press. And then it just kind of like all clicked for me. And I was like, oh, like the reason that this scene feels fragmented is because there's not like a centralized place to talk about it. Like art doesn't happen in a vacuum. It requires people to talk about it. And that's like what one of the main purposes of music journalism is just to create conversation.
Yeah.
So I was just like I had moved here for a job that I only ended up working for 2 months. It was in Kent. So if, I didn't realize that Kent was not Seattle. Not Seattle.
Not at all.
I only worked there for 2 months. So I was also kind of in this space of like trying to find a new job, but like not really wanting to do anything because I just wanted to like do music or do journalism and writing and be a creative, and couldn't really find anything like in that vein. And, I'm still on unemployment. Like I still haven't really turned it into a job, or a paying job. I tell people I have a job. It just doesn't pay me anything. Like I do this constantly. It just like doesn't actually pay me.
Exactly.
But so I started it. We've been kicking ever since.
That's so cool. What made you come up with the name?
Oh my gosh, that's a good story. And most people don't ask me that. That's a good question. When I first started it, I was working a temp job at like a legal processing firm. If you can't already tell, I'm very extroverted. So it was awful because everyone would just like put their headphones in and just like click the computer buttons all day. And I was like, you guys, like I'm not made for this. So I started DansTunes just like as a blog when I was there, and I was writing not just on local stuff. I was just writing about music in general, and I called it Danosaur because that was one of like my friends' nicknames for me that I really liked, and called it that. And then when I decided to pivot it into more of like professional local journalism, less bloggy, focus on the local scene as opposed to just like whatever I found interesting. I mean, I find the local scene interesting, but like my first piece was on like Kesha.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like spitballing with one of my friends, and she suggested DansTunes because she was like, it's punny, like dance tunes.
Yeah.
And at that point I was just kind of like, yeah, sure, like whatever, like no one reads this site. Like it is what it is. And I was like, yeah, that's a great name, whatever. And now now we're here. I think of it like Netflix. Like, have you ever thought about how stupid Netflix is as a name? Fucking
I have,
Netflix. Sorry, I can just go on Facebook, right?
Yes.
Okay. I swear a lot.
You and me both, friend.
Okay, cool. Great.
Everybody's like, can we swear on this show? I'm like, have you seen any of the last shows? We swear constantly.
Yes, love it.
There's no way around it. So we decided we were going to have some fun and have a drink. So if you're watching, have a drink with us.
Yeah, do it up. Mercury's in retrograde.
Exactly. So I'm curious what your first like impression of the Seattle scene was coming from Michigan, and like your first show and how that went. Like, can you describe that for us? Being an outsider coming in.
Okay, I don't think people are gonna like this answer, but it's me, so I have to be honest.
Okay. Always honesty is always good.
You gotta be honest, otherwise people can tell. They're like,
exactly.
So in full honesty, I was like, why aren't people dancing? Like, no one's being loud. Like, why is the artist not talking to me from the stage? Right? Yeah. Like why are they just playing their songs? Like why is this not shoegaze band performing like a shoegaze band, right? Like just staring at their shoes. And I don't remember who it was. Like, this is zero shade. I don't remember the actual first show I went to. This was just like general first impressions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, guys, like dance or like talk, and not just the people on stage, like the people in the audience, right? Like, like we can talk to each other, like we can dance, we can do all these things. I've since found the people that do that in the music community. But yeah. I was just kind of like, guys, what do you like? Be loud. I'm from Michigan, like be loud.
Oh my gosh, that you are right. Like that is a thing where like I noticed that people just kind of go to observe. Mm-hmm. And like they just want to watch and experience, and unless you're at like a specific band's show that like we both know, where like people are on the floor, on the ground, just everybody's dancing, unless it's something like that, like I feel like it is kind of like that, where people are more apt to just want to just stand around and watch it, And I agree. I think people should be more like in tune with the music and like have fun, I feel like it's kind of lacking that, but I think we're in a movement where people are going to want that now because they haven't had it for so long. So I kind of feel like we're coming back to that.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and I hope the artists like take advantage of that too, right? Like, like your job on stage is to get the audience to dance.
Yes.
Even if it's Seattleites who don't want to dance, like that's still your job to like do your best to try to get them to dance. So like, I don't know. I guess that's my advice to artists. Like, if people aren't dancing, like fuck them, dance anyway. Like,
exactly. I'm not the type to go out and be the first one to do it. Saw somebody walking by.
Important news.
Hey. Shh. So that's her. Hey, I saw somebody. They might be dangerous.
My favorite part of COVID is that I get to meet everyone's animals.
Yeah, she's been with me since November, and she's popped in on some of the shows. In the beginning, she was only 3 months old and was a terror, and so I would keep her in her kennel. But now she's 9 months old and she's pretty good. She'll just sit away, but she still barks at people in the window. So kind of a two-way.
What is it?
She is hey Lily, come here. Lily, come here.
Lily, come here.
She's a lab. Come here. Come here. You say hi.
Oh.
Say hi. Say hi, everybody. Yeah, hi. Hi, Miss Lily. Yes, I know.
Oh, sweetheart.
Don't protect the house. Yeah, she's a lab. She's a lab mix. She's not full on lab, but she's a lab mix.
Okay.
So, she's got blue healer in her. So she's like got like all the colors in the face of a lab, but like she's just short, like a blue healer.
Okay.
And really skinny. Like everybody's like, "What's wrong with her? She's so skinny. You don't feed her." I'm like, if you only knew how much this dog ate. She'll eat everything.
That's like the opposite of my cat. I'm like, I barely feed you and you're still fat. What's going on?
It's probably because cats are known for laying around. I imagine there's not a lot of exercise involved.
My cat doesn't move at all. She's literally like, she's not food motivated either.
Yeah.
Like, she's not toy motivated. She literally, all she wants to do is sit and cuddle. Like, if I'm not laying in my bed 24/7, she's upset.
Yeah. That's kind of, Lily likes to just like run around. That's like her thing.
Okay.
But like, man, when she wants to lay down and cuddle, it's like, woman, you better lay down with me and you better cuddle right now. And she'll like grab me and pull me in. And I'm just like, I don't have time for this. Like, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. You go take it.
Yep.
Get out of here with that.
Yep.
So yeah, she's a character. I love her, but she's a character.
I feel that.
But she's been a great addition to the local music scene. Everybody, like, I'll bring her to a couple of shows or whatever, and everybody like seems to enjoy the fact that she'll come and be a part of everything, like the Fremont Fridays and the Christmas things that we do and stuff like that. So it's just been lots of fun kind of bringing her along to everything.
Well, you didn't tell me you brought your dog to Fremont Fridays. Now I gotta go.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah, I didn't the first 3 times I went, but then I saw other people were bringing dogs and I was like, and then there was a couple that was like, this is way off topic, but there was a couple that was there that had that just got a puppy the day before, and they had no idea what to do with her. Oh. So I was like trying to help her, or was it a he? I don't know. It was a Goldie, I think, and oh my gosh, cutest thing ever. But they were just like, we're struggling with him. Yeah, it was a Goldie. We're struggling with him, like, walking around and doing all these things. And I was just like, you got to get better control of him, bro. Like, and I started showing him like what to do. And he's like, that's G.
I could do an entire podcast or interview on how much I don't like people who don't train their dogs well.
Yep.
I love your dog as long as it's trained.
Yes. Mine jumps because she gets so excited. No matter, she knows she's not supposed to, and she'll look at me as she's doing it. And I'm like, get down. And I'll pull her down and she'll be like, okay, fine, I'll sit.
Oh,
like,
that's funny.
So she just gets like, she just forgets sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think she just does it on purpose. I think she's in her teenage stage of just like, I don't want to listen. I don't want to do any rules. Yep. And I want to just climb out the window at night and, go off with my boyfriend. Whatever teenage shit we used to do.
I hope she's spayed.
She is not.
Oh, God. Protection is important.
Yeah, protection is important. Yes. That's why we keep her in the backyard, So yeah, it's quite entertaining. She's quite the character. So, but it was fun just kind of bringing her along into this whole ride of LMS and being able to have everybody like accept her. I was kind of worried how it was going to go, and everybody was like, "She's so great." And I'm like, "Okay, I guess it's okay."
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Because they would hear her barking and if you like go back to some of the November ones, you'll see she's just like barking or crying or like, and I'm like, that's just my puppy. She's mad she can't be out. So, embracing her as part of the LMS community was hard for me, but easy for everybody else.
Love it. Yes. I wish I could bring my cat places. She has a backpack.
I mean,
here's
the thing. I taught mine how to walk on a leash, and I brought her everywhere.
Your cat?
I think you could do it.
My cat does not like going places. Like, she literally, I will leave the door wide open, and she will not go outside.
What?
She's like, I was out there for a year by myself. Now you cuddle me, you feed me, you pet me. Why would I go outside again?
All right.
I'm like, you know what? That's logic that I can't play with.
Fair point. Yes. Yeah. I agree with. Why are cats so smart?
They're so smart. I know. I know.
Dogs, however, they're just like outdoors. So I open the door and it's like fucking herd, like out the door. We have 4 dogs here, and all of them, you open that door, and it's just like a herd of dogs that just run.
Oh my God, that's a lot of dogs.
Yeah. Well, the people I live with have 3, and then one of them is her sister.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
And then I have her. So
okay.
It's just a lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're so left. Okay. So I wanted to go over like how you think about being in on the flip side of kind of interviewing people and because you're a musician as well, right? Did I read that somewhere?
Yes, I would consider myself a musician. I don't have anything like recorded or out. I am currently working on something though. I have a new writing partner that I'm fairly excited about. So maybe, hopefully soon.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I think we're going to try to play some open mics. I don't know any that are open yet.
But I mean, most places are, but I'll help you, friend.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, and I just was curious, like me in the beginning, what was it like in the beginning of like interviewing? I mean, you're kind of more of an extrovert than I am, so maybe it was easier. But for me, I was like kind of shy in the beginning and was just like, I don't know if I could do this, like the first one, if you ever watch it, you'll just see I'm a pile of nerves.
Yeah. I feel it. I mean, you were at my podcast last week. Like that's like, I mean, it was the first one we'd done in front of a live audience. It definitely wasn't the first podcast I did. And I was still like, oh God.
Yeah.
I still get nervous every time. I think when that goes away, it'll be weird. I don't know this. I want to say it was like Lady Gaga or some big pop star was like, I don't get like anxious anymore, but like when I stop getting nervous, I'll know something's wrong because you should always have like a little bit of that excitement and like, oh my God, like I don't know what's gonna happen. And I mean, something like could go wrong in like the best way, right? Like that's sometimes the things that go wrong are the best parts of a live show.
That is very true. I think that's why I like live shows. Like, I think that's why last night I went to Katie Wade's show. She forgot the lyrics to like a song that she's been singing for like 5 years. And she comes back over to me and she's like, how did I even forget those lyrics? Like, what is happening right now? And I was like, well, it happens. Everybody cheered her on, the audience was helping, and I feel like, live shows just make everybody kind of human, you're not so like, distant from thinking that they're so high up on the pedestal or something.
And everybody's been out of practice for a year, so like I would be shocked if musicians like weren't forgetting the lyrics to their songs, right? Like what kind of superhero are you if you're not forgetting your lyrics?
Yeah, that's so true. Do you remember who your first interview was?
Coyote Ugly.
Really? I still have yet to have them on. We've tried so many times. It's like, oh, I need to reschedule. Oh, I need to reschedule. It's just like, I'm missing something.
No, they're cool dudes. Honestly, I wish I could be like, I picked them because like I had this really great idea or like loved their music so much or like whatever. But really, it was just like they had a show and I was kind of like, it's now or never. Like either I do this or I don't. And I was just like, I'm just going to pick a show on a day that I'm free and I'm just going to go and I'm going to ask the musicians if I can interview them. And I did. And they said yes. And I was shocked. But like, I did it. And I was super out of practice, honestly. Like I mean, to be quite honest, I still feel really out of practice in a lot of ways, just because like I run this publication on my own. So even like I'm in the process of writing an article for The Stranger and I've been talking to the editor and like we've been talking back and forth about like my interviews and like how they're developing and like what angle we should do with the story. And I was like, oh my God, like I forgot how this worked because I've just been like editing and writing on my own for so long. I forgot how collaborative that process can be. So there are still things that I feel really out of practice for, but I was just kind of like, like let's do it. And I mean, they were really nice and it was I haven't read it in a while, but I remember it being a good interview. And, it was a big learning experience for me too, because I think especially like at this level, local musicians are just excited to have anyone actually interested in talking about music.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I jumped into. Like I have been in the music scene since 2000. And I played and wrote music back then and was on, the last show I ever did was, I opened for Brandi Carlile.
Wow.
Before she was like Brandi Carlile.
Cool. Okay.
And in 2002, I think it was.
Okay.
And at the Showbox, which was amazing. And then I was like, yeah, I think that's a good high to stop on.
Why did you stop?
Life happened after, and I had like adopted a kid when I was 18, and so I was only 20 in 2002, and so life just kind of took a turn, and I was like, all right, I can't do music anymore. I got to be an adult, and yeah, so
okay.
But then it all kind of came back around, and I started writing again, and I found that I don't like the stage. Not my thing. So I started like pimping out all of my songs to other people.
There you go. Hey, there's lots of jobs in the music industry.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Totally.
And now I write consistently with Katie Wade. We've written almost since November. I think we've written almost 10 songs together.
Nice.
And yeah. And so I think it's cool that like I think for maybe for you and for me, I think it's cool kind of being a musician, but also being on the other side of it, understanding them and where they come from. And I think you're right. I think this level is like, even if you're kind of higher up in the level of it all and kind of a little more famous, like, I feel like even then it's one of those things where, I like to make them feel like they're Beyonce or Nirvana or whoever they are, like that's kind of my goal. But when I first started this, it was like, I did the same thing. I went to like close to 30 shows a month.
Yep.
And just like immersed myself in it all and just started like being like, hi, I'm Kara. I'm with the local music scene. Any chance you want to do an interview? And then eventually, I mean, I was like, did you ever have to do like research? Like I was researching people.
I found that research was very difficult. I would attempt to research, but like, again, like because it's local bands, like a lot of them just don't have, like they don't have any other press written about them, which is so like, I'm kind of like, well, I mean, now we have a whole submission form. So the research is kind of built in. I'm like, tell me about your submission. Like, tell me about you. So that way we can have a little bit of background. But I found it was really, really difficult because there wasn't any press and like most of them don't have websites. So, I can like scroll through their Instagram or Facebook as best as I can, but sometimes they don't even have that.
Yeah.
It was really hard at first. And I think now just because I've developed like a rapport with a lot of the bands I know who they are, I have all this background knowledge, but no, at first there wasn't even research to do most of the time.
Yeah. I found that too. And it was a lot of like, I also had to like find bands too. Like even though I was going to shows and stuff, like some of them were like, oh, we're not ready for that, or we're I don't know, we're too busy, or whatever their case was. And so it was like hard to try and find bands too. But yeah, I mean, I was so obsessed in the beginning of like getting it right that like I had a notebook full, like I still have it, of all the questions I would ask, and then like sub questions, like where that question would go. Like I knew where that question would lead, and in hopes it would lead that way. And I'd be like, okay, and ask this question, So and then I would listen to as much music as I could and like dive into lyrics and music and all, kind of like you did at your live show. And I felt like that made me a good interviewer in the beginning, but it was so like robotic, like there was, even though I tried not to, because I was still nervous, but like it still felt kind of robotic. Like I'm still reading off of, because in the beginning I was doing it in person. And then eventually like, yeah, I was in person. And then
I hear that weird.
Well, you do yours in person, right?
Well, it depends on the interview.
Okay.
I mean, all the podcasts are in person for sure.
Yeah, all the that's what. All of those are in person, aren't they? Yeah,
all the podcasts are in person. Yeah. If I'm just writing an interview for something else, usually over the phone. But I mean, I'm also always down to meet people. Like so many people, like I get so many people that just add me on Facebook too, and they're just like, "Hey, like I'm this musician." And I'm like, "Hey, cool!" Like, and they're like, "Want to help me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Oh God, now I'm gonna get
that all the time too. I'm like, this is my personal one. Do I want to be friends with you?
Like, I know. Oh god, especially in the pandemic, it's been really nice though. If people like are willing to meet, I'm just like,
yeah,
let's.
I did it in the beginning. Like I was just driving everywhere. There was so much gas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would I did it with my camera, and I would edit all of the video myself, and it would take so long. And then I finally got to to a point where I'd met one of the musicians who had her manager was in a $500,000 studio. Okay. So I started doing it out of that, and they let me do it out of that for free.
Nice.
And use all their equipment and stuff. And so I did that for like 2 or 3 months. And again was like, and then came, how well are my editing skills from college after so long of putting like 2 videos together and like making sure the audio was good. And I was like, man, I'm really out of practice.
Yes. See, the lucky thing for me is that I'm a writer, so it doesn't have to sound good. I just write it down. Just like, here's what you said, word for word. I got it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. So and then in January, I had a couple of artists that were telling me that they didn't like what I was doing, and they were kind of rude and mean. And so I kind of decided that I was going to give it up. And they were saying it was like, God, I forget exactly. I don't know. It was just a lot of mean stuff that they didn't like how I was like trying, because I was for the studio, I was doing it free until December, and then like January, February. January, February, I started charging like $20 because it was 100 miles round trip for me to go there. And so I was like, I'm just, and all the bands that came in, they were like, here's your $20. We'll do it for, it's practically free. So a couple of the artists told me that they didn't think it was fair, that I was exploiting people, that I didn't care, and I just wanted money. And I was like, dude, it's just for gas for me to be able to do it in a $500,000 studio with $8,000 worth of equipment. Come on.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not really, I'm not like breaking your bank. You make that in tips, like, so.
Right. No, I think it's tricky. And that's a lot of the discussions that I've been having lately too, especially like as live shows come back and as shows start again. And, musicians have obviously been out of work for a year. I mean, like, but so have we, right? Like, I mean, I'm on unemployment. I'm not gonna lie, like it's been a blessing. Like the pandemic has given me the opportunity to be on unemployment and to grow my own business. But like, I just moved in with my best friend and her parents because I couldn't pay my rent. Like I'm on food stamps. Like I'm not like nobody's doing great, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like the solution is just to have really like open, transparent conversations and like to be like, hey, I would love to interview you. I have this great studio, but I will need you to throw me $20 if we do it here. Otherwise, like, can we do a phone interview or like whatever? Yeah. And like, if people are going to be mad at you for that, like they don't have to pay you the $20.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's what a lot of the musicians I talked to about it. They were saying like, I was like blacklisted in the local scene in Seattle. And I was just like, okay. But then like everybody I talked to didn't seem to know anything about it. So like, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll keep going. And then like one of my friends that had made me kind of start the whole thing to begin with, I talked to him about it, and he was like, dude, like it's not even, if they want to just be mean, let them be mean. Like, who cares? Keep going. Like, you're doing great.
Yeah.
And then like, so by like February, I was feeling okay, and I started doing it again. I'd taken a little bit of a break. And then I had a tragedy in my family. And at the end of February, and I got COVID at the beginning of March. And then like March, 17th, everything shut down. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that was my answer. Yeah. And so it took me a minute to come back because I was still kind of reeling from, I'd lost my brother in the end of February. And so I was coming back from it. And then I literally did like a show every single day. Like people were just wanting to be on. And so, I mean, I couldn't even keep up with everybody. It was so much. And so I just continued from March until the end of November. I did like a show every single day except for Sunday.
Wow.
And obviously there were a couple of days in between, like my birthday and things like that, where I didn't. But yeah, like it was crazy. But that's where I kind of learned that like I didn't really want to do it for money. I wanted to do it for the artists, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was having so much fun, and I'd missed music so much.
Yeah.
I was like, this is how I'm going to go out to shows, is just having them on my show and listen to them sing.
So. Yeah, I feel that. I know that's been a reckoning for me too. You know, just like fuck money, but also it's a necessity. And like the business is a reality.
Yeah.
And the reality is that I want to surround my life with art, which means that I have to learn how to make money from it. Yeah. And I hate that, and it sucks, but it is what it is. And I think especially musicians in the community like do understand that. I mean, of course, there are the musicians who, you know, have day jobs and just do it for fun. Mm-hmm. But, well, I hope everybody does it for fun. But, you know, like the musicians who are really trying to make a career out of it, like they understand. And, you know, again, I think it just goes back to having like open, transparent conversations. Like, hey, like, how can we help each other? Like everybody's hurting. Exactly. How can we like make this symbiotic? Because like, even if we each only get $5, like, hey, let's go get 2 tacos together. Yeah. Like, or like a taco and a half. We can get like 3 tacos and get 1.5.
That's awesome. What has been your like craziest? You don't have to tell who. But what has been like your craziest interview, or on your podcast, or like that you've written?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. You mean like crazy how? I guess.
Like. The answers given, or even on your podcast, like how they acted, or, you know, anything.
The one that sticks out most to me, and I almost hate saying this because they are fucking dominating the scene right now, and I hate that. I mean, I love it. It's great for them, but like the whole thing behind DansTunes is kind of is not having one person dominate the scene, right? Like we're trying to show a comprehensive picture,
right?
But honestly, like. My podcast that I did with Martial Law Band, it just their album was, if anyone like who's watching doesn't know, they wrote an entire concept album about their performance at like CHOP and the protests, and it was just it was transformative, and like it was beautiful, and it really hits. It's a beautiful concept album. I also just am a sucker for concept albums. Like I wish that was more of a thing. But I had them on my podcast, and I don't even think this is in the actual podcast, but at the end, like one of the last songs we were talking about, how their white bandmates literally like formed a line in front of like the 2 black main people, Matt and Marshall, in between the police, and like protected them. And like Matt and Marshall start like tearing up. And at the end of the podcast, they're like, Dan, like we'd never talked about that before. And like we didn't realize like how much of that we were like holding in and how much we needed to get out. And they were like, that was like therapy. And like, honestly, like that's kind of what I aim for with every podcast now. So like, it wasn't, I mean, full disclosure, like I've done a lot of work for them just like personally as well. So like, I know them pretty well. So like, you know, they didn't really say anything that I wasn't expecting, but just, like that experience of like being able to help them like understand their own art, and like seeing them cry, and like how much they value their bandmates and each other. Like it was a really like beautiful experience.
That's so awesome to be a part of that. I was lucky enough to be a part of them making the album and sitting there with them for 6 days.
Cool.
And being there when they first did Vibe Check, when they were just like trying to do it as people were walking by.
Yeah.
And, like BLM, like just them singing Black Lives Matter. Like it was just like this whole like vibey thing that we were all just kind of trying to have, and then it became a song, you know, and and people were just screaming Black Lives Matter, and Marshall just started Black Lives Matter. Like it was just,
I know,
you know? And
that's
so
go ahead.
It was just this whole thing of like being able to be a part of that, and then them making that as an album, and those songs just like for me were so I mean, I will never forget those 6 days as long as I live. you know? And for us, like me, I don't know if you know Priscilla, Josh, the guitarist's girlfriend. Josh, no? Oh.
I mean, I know Josh. I don't know Priscilla.
Oh, yeah, Josh, the guitarist, his girlfriend's name is Priscilla, and her and I are really good friends. And her and I would like walk off and like take pictures because we're both photographers. And like you can't not want to take pictures of something this epic, you know? And the guys were so protective. I mean, they would not let us go anywhere without anybody, you know? And Maddie would just, or Matt would just be like, you guys are not going anywhere without somebody. We're like, but we want to take pictures. Like,
wait, why wouldn't they? I don't get it. Why wouldn't they let you go?
Because they were protective of us being at that protest and us going into the crowd and
at the protest.
At the protest. Yeah.
I thought you meant while they were recording the album, and I was like,
oh, no.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, that was one of my experiences too. Like at that Museum of Flight show when they did It's Gonna Get Better, and they were like, this is a new one. I was like, I was fucking there when you rode it. Like, I rode the jelly bean with you from Columbia City to Pioneer Square and fucking took a lift back to my house while you were writing this. And you know,
I was behind them on the jelly bean, that first one. And I just drove behind them, and it's, I don't know, you know, the experiences I've had, everybody kind of does that same thing. We're like, oh, you only, you know, feature the martial law band and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, it's not so much that, it's that I've had so many good experiences and life changing experiences through them doing this whole thing. And you know, I wouldn't have gone, I don't know if I would have gone down to CHOP if I hadn't known them. I think it made it more personal for me as like, you know, Fairy Von Mother and all these other people that really, you know, I cared about, and I felt like I needed to be there, you know?
I feel that they were what made me go down in the first place too. And then, I mean, I went when they weren't there too, but I went a lot to see them. And I think, you know, especially as a journalist, I was like, oh, like I can cover this now. There's music here. I mean, not that I shouldn't have been there otherwise. Like I should have been there otherwise as well. But and I think like they're getting so much coverage because they've really just done so much. And I don't want that to be shade on anyone else. Like it's been a really hard year, and there are other people doing things, but like they have just done so much. So I'm like, I'm also like, I'm actively trying not to cover them because we've had so much, and like we only have like, you know, X amount of people on staff. And, like I'm only one person, like I can only do so much, and like I need our coverage to be more balanced. But it is like they've just been here the whole time. Like the whole pandemic, they've been doing shit. So it's like, how do you not cover that? You know?
And it's like things that, and the thing for me is that it's things like them changing the scene of how things are being done. Like the pandemic, they're like, well, we can't play in a venue, we can't do this. Marshall was like, I think we should get a float. Anybody got a float? I'm just like, what? They're like one step ahead of it, you know. Fremont Fridays, like, still can't play, but we're just gonna play in the middle of the parking lot, you know. So I feel like, you know, I think they're giving artists a opportunity. I think they're doing something and giving artists an opportunity to think outside the box, and they're teaching people that it's okay to still play music. You just have to figure out a way to do it, you know. And you know, I think for most artists, you know, it was really devastating. I know like everybody was so devastated that music couldn't be played anywhere. And even at your own home and like, you know, that kind of stuff. I'll be honest, and they can't put me in jail now, but we, in the beginning of June, July, and August, we like my friend had a farm, and we were just having artists there play. You know? And like, I was like, I'm not going to not play me. Like, I can't not go. Bless you.
Thank you. No, totally. I feel that. I think, gosh, I don't know. I have one more thing to say about Martial Law Band, and then I'm going to shut up. But I think about them. But I think like the thing that is so remarkable about them is how many times they fail and keep going. And like, as the public, like you don't see how many times they fail and how many terrible ideas they have. Right? Like, you see the success, and like that's what keeps going. And I think like that's what I really admire about them. Like both Matt and Marshall have really, really like undeniably like flaggingly like positive attitudes.
Yes.
And they just keep going.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah. It's a drive that, like, it's insane. The two of them, they just have this like complete insane way of just like keep them getting up every single morning and just like either writing music or going or doing it. And they're always doing something. You're like, hey, can you do this, Marshall? And he's like, nope, I got 12 hours of things to do. And you're like, all right, bro.
I'm like, can you share some dopamine?
Yeah.
Because like I have way less than you. I think you have an overabundance, and like I would love it.
Yes. I know. Can you just like siphon some of that in my arm? Just this much.
I don't need an SSRI. I just need 3% of what you have. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's intriguing and awesome to be able to like see them grow. But you know, I've also seen a lot of some of the other artists like take the pandemic and go like one of two ways with it. They took it and wanted to make their craft better and like wrote a song every day, or you know, whatever their thing was. Some people had challenges, some people had, you know, all these things that they were doing to make their craft better, and other people just stopped and lost who they were, you know, in the beginning. And it was kind of interesting to see that ebb and flow as I had people on and trying to like navigate the sadness of the pandemic, but also encourage them to like keep doing music and like, hey, we all are still here for your music. Like music is timeless. Like keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know? I was on this mission. Like I made LMS start to be this mission of like save local music, you know, and I just wanted to like make sure it was still intact when we all got out of it.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what does happen with live shows. Yeah. I was talking to Jeff Rogness. God, somebody tell me how to say his last name, because I do that literally every single time I say his name. I'm like, Rogness? I don't know. Jeff, if you're out there, let me know how to pronounce your name. I'll ask him. But I was talking to him the other day, and he was saying like, he books the Tractor. Yeah. And he was saying that he has touring acts like coming for like fall. But until then, it's just going to be local music, because like touring acts obviously take a lot of time to just like logistically like put together. So I think it's going to be a really interesting summer of like mostly local shows, but I'm interested to see how that plays out. Like, is it going to just be this like miraculous like 2 months where it's all local all the time, and then it just goes back to like business as usual? Is that going to help local bands, you know, build up followings and be able to then like go on tour and, you know, open for more of these touring acts or things like that? I think, you know, it's going to be a really, really weird, interesting case study. I mean, obviously, like none of us have ever lived through anything like this before, so there's literally like zero bar or like zero expectation.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm putting on a show in July, and I'm kind of nervous about it. Like, I'm nervous how people are going to react. I'm nervous how, like, I have a artist coming from out of state that I know, and so and hoping to like draw some people in too. And like, it's interesting how to like navigate that after all of this. And like, are people going to show up? I'm like, yes, we can definitely sell out. And then you realize we're post-pandemic. Do people even want to go out? You know? Like, so it's just like, I'm interested to see how it goes too, and how touring acts are going to be, you know? Yeah. Everybody's touring. Yep. You know, like big names are touring, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of going to be like this thing of like, you know, how full are those seats going to be? Is it going to be like it was before, while people were, you know, just enjoying it?
I am also in the middle of planning a show / fundraiser. Everybody, I know I'm still in the process, so I don't have any details yet, but I'm planning one. But yeah, I think, from what I've heard talking to booking agents recently, like people are excited and people are coming out. But I think the thing that it most comes down to is honestly where the venue is. Because like, again, Jeff from the Tractor was like, I think we're going to get a lot of foot traffic, and people will just be like, oh my God, like $10 or $15 for a show. Like, I'm not drinking, like, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
I think Cafe Racer has a new location in Cap Hill, and I think they're probably going to get a lot more foot traffic than they would in their old location, which was by the fucking like cat adoption center. I mean, like, I love that cat adoption center.
Yeah,
I'm all about the cat adoption center, but like, people are not just like walking by the cat adoption center and being like, let's go to a show, right? So I think
I always thought that was the weirdest place.
I don't know. I mean,
like,
I love
put a venue. I'm like, I don't know about this.
I know, but I'm excited for them. They're in like the new where Barca or Barca was in Cap Hill, some bar. I don't know. I've never been there, but they're in that space now. Yeah, and I think it is really just going to come down to like foot traffic, which I mean, it did before the pandemic too, but it's really hard, or it can be hard to get people to be like, yes, like be here at this time. Like even like, look at me, like I was late for this online thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like hard to pin people down.
I didn't tell her to say that. Just saying, I wouldn't have even.
No, I'll own it. I mess up. I'm a human. I can admit that I was late and I messed this one up. But yeah, it's gonna come down to foot traffic, and it's just gonna be like, how do we actually get people in here, and like what's the price point too? Is I think you're
that's what I'm struggling with. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh, that was the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
What are people gonna want to pay, and what is worth it? And at this point, have artists lost some of their fan base, and are they gonna want to pay? Like, it's just like, that was the hardest part for me too, is just trying to find the happy medium. And like wanting to make sure it was affordable, but also that like the artists are making something too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's where that transparency comes in. Just like, hey, like, do you want to do a percentage split? Do you want to do a flat fee? Like, do you want to do a flat fee plus percentage after that? Like, here's what I can offer you, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I mean, I think it highly depends on who the audience is too, right? Because musicians are all in our boat where they're like, no, I can't fucking pay you. Like, I love you and I want to give you my money, but I can't. Like, I have to eat. And I'm like, I totally get that. And everyone in the tech world fucking bought a house this year.
Yes.
So like, it comes down to like who's actually coming to this show, and like who is this audience. And that's been something that I've really been working on too, because like, I'm like, how do I reach these tech people? Where it's like, oh, cute, a show. But who can afford it? And who can just be like, $10, $20 for this band that I don't know and might not like, whatever, that's chump change to me. Whereas like, if it's, $10, $20 to a musician, like, you want to know that like you want to be at that show. And it's a little bit more of like a decision-making process in that case, because those $10, $20 really matter.
Yeah. And that's where I've been kind of, because I turned LMS into a business on the side of doing booking and photography and things like that. And so like, that was the biggest thing, is like, where is that price point, right? What's good for me? What's good for them? What's good for, the venue, whoever we're playing, wherever we're playing at, or they're playing at. It's just interesting to me, because I'd never seen that side of it before. And I've only heard from like Marshall and Katie and some other people of like, they always are screwing people. They're always screwing people, or the musicians. And, now that I've been on the flip side, I was working for a venue, and I get it now, like it's a whole different, it's hard to make money and make it affordable for the audience, and there's a lot of overhead that comes into doing a show. And I think that's where a lot of either musicians or the audience don't kind of understand, is that it just takes a lot to put on a show,
Totally. Yeah. And again, I think that's where that transparency comes in. This is actually a lot of the questions that in the article that I'm working on for The Stranger right now, that's a lot of the questions that I'm trying to like bring up. And I don't want to say I'm trying to answer them, because they're like really large, like societal questions, but at least like get a conversation going around. Yeah. I mean, most of the venues that I've talked to have said that they see people paying higher prices right now because people are so hungry for it. So, like, I don't know, I would say, like, fucking charge for a little bit more for the tickets if you can right now. And then if demand slows down and it goes back to pre-pandemic levels, then, maybe you lower ticket sales then. But I know also, like, Jeff at the Tractor was like, we're not doing $8 shows. That's just not enough. Like, we need to bring in more money for the musicians. And genuinely, I think, like, $10 to $20, like, if it's a $10 ticket versus a $20 ticket, sure, like, that might deter some people. But if it's an $8 ticket versus a $10 ticket, I can't imagine anyone being like, no, I can't pay those extra $2.
Yeah, they're giving you a 10 anyways.
Exactly. Right. So unless they're like, I literally have $15 to spend, so I needed like 7 for the drink and then like 8 for the show or like whatever. But I think when it comes down to stuff like that, like, what is $2 extra to support someone who is genuinely bringing you a service? And I think like that's something that I hope the pandemic has taught people, like, that musicians are genuinely bringing you a service. Like, how fucking depressed would you have felt this whole time if you couldn't listen to music?
Yeah.
Like, even streaming.
For sure. And that's the whole point, I think, is like, I think for people like us, that want to shine light on local musicians and bring that to a head of people more appreciated just because they're a local artist and not fucking Beyonce or Maroon 5 or some shit, doesn't mean that they're not talented or...
Wait, Maroon 5. Did we listen to their latest album?
I have not.
What?
I have not.
It's just, I went on a Twitter rant about it. Follow me on Twitter at DanRayC. The songs aren't bad. They just lack, like, literally any artistry.
Yes.
Like, I would pay to see other people perform those songs, but I would not pay to see Maroon 5 perform those songs, is how I'm going to put it.
Oh my gosh. That's terrible. I mean,
I love Maroon 5. Like,
I was gonna say, I kind of love them.
I do too.
I don't know. They're kind of like a step down from Nickelback in the made fun of category. You know how Nickelback is like always made fun of.
Okay, Kara. Nickelback was my first concert.
Of course it was.
It was Nickelback, Daughtry, and Stained.
Oh my god, that's a great concert.
Or Daughtry.
Oh my god, I love Daughtry.
I didn't really care about Stained. It was amazing. I mean, I loved it. I was 13. Nickelback was like spraying beer on people, and I was like, I'm 13. But it was great. I still have the shirt.
Yeah.
Maroon 5, I've seen like 10 to 15 times. Like, saw them every single time they came to Detroit when I was growing up. Fucking loved them. Yeah. Now I look back on everything that's not songs about Jane, and I'm like, this is trash. But at the time, like, it can't be seen before long. Bumping it.
I haven't seen Maroon 5 live yet. And I have to say I do love them. And I saw Nickelback live. I've seen, I've been to like almost 500 concerts in my life. And like, I've seen a lot of people, but like at the same token, I feel, you want to know who my first one was? Could you even guess?
AC/DC.
That's a good guess, but no. It's a great guess, but no.
Thank you. What was it?
New Kids on the Block when I was 7.
Ooh, okay. Early riser.
How old I am.
I mean, I was too young for New Kids on the Block. They were popular like I got into like Britney, and I was 4 when Britney got popular. Okay. So I think I was like 2 years too young for New Kids. They were let's see, Britney was 98. Mm-hmm. New Kids was the 80s. So they were kind of like slowing down once NSYNC and like it was like the next generation of boy bands. Right. And so it was like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and 98 Degrees and Hanson and all those. Yeah. So. Did you ever get into any of those? Oh, yes. Yeah. I loved Britney Spears and Christina. and NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. I was always more in favor of Christina and the Backstreet Boys because I always root for an underdog. Can you tell by like my profession?
Right.
Underdog. But then when I was like 13 and I was into like Nickelback and Daughtry and like Default, that like Canadian like southern rock band, like I love them. I sold all of my like Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears CDs at a garage sale, and I am still mad about it. I am still mad I did that.
I saw Britney play at the Gorge when I saw her live, and then I saw Backstreet Boys. Like, I saw all of those guys at like the Tacoma Dome.
Okay.
But my favorite coming out of there, and still is my number one favorite band, is Hanson, coming out of all of that. Like, I'm almost 30 years in as a fan.
Yeah.
And I got to see them live in 98, and it was like a religious experience for me. They became like my favorite band I've ever seen. And I've been to I think I've been to 17 of their concerts.
Yep.
And like kind of like you with Maroon 5, you know, like I've just been to so many, and it's exciting. Like I think, you know, that's where, you know, for those of us that love music, you just kind of find your way to like concerts all the time, you know, and like I think it has to start young, you know, like did you love music as a child too?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I used to tell people, well, I just told the story actually. This is a good one. In Michigan, people don't understand what you mean when they say you want to be a musician. So like my entire growing up life, I'd be like, I want to be a musician. And they'd be like, well, like you want to sing in coffee shops on the weekends? And I'd be like, no, like on the radio. And they'd be like, oh, so like you want to be a disc jockey? Yeah. And I'd be like, no, like I want to be like Katy Perry. And then I'd be like, oh.
That exists.
Okay, like that is a job. Like that is a job that some people have. You know, I mean, I'm not Katy Perry yet.
Yeah.
So, you know,
you're this close, friend.
I know. But you know, so yeah, no, I got into music really young. I mean, like you know, without going into too many details in this like Facebook interview, I'm a very open book. I'm completely happy to talk about my trauma. I just don't think this is like the space for it. But like, I had a fairly traumatic childhood, so I just like I used music as a way to cope. I've been writing songs since I was like 8, and I think that's why I gravitated like to music so much. Actually, in Bruce Springsteen's new podcast with Obama, which is great. If you have not, it's called like The Renegades, I think. But he said something like, all artists, like musicians or visual artists or like whatever, like anyone who does art because they're just looking for a way to be heard. And I was like, that is so spot on, because like I never felt heard, I never felt seen, like I was fairly neglected as a child, and I just wanted someone to listen to me and to hear me. So I started doing music. I wrote awful, terrible songs. I think they're better now. So when I like go to open mics in the community, you guys can tell me if they're better now or if they still need some work. But yeah, no, music was always this like saving grace for me. And honestly, I think the only way I made it through quarantine was through music. Like I feel very, very blessed in that I have seen live music most of this quarantine. And like, I don't know if you saw it today, I posted something on Instagram where I was like, hey, like, how do y'all feel about live music coming back? Because I just had this realization of like, I don't really, like I haven't been in an audience or like been in front of an audience or that, but like I've been doing my podcast this whole time. Before that, I was on work from home. So like I really have seen live music this whole time. And especially at the beginning, like I remember the only thing that got me through my week was work from home, because I was like, okay, like I know Friday I get to be with a couple of my friends and I get to see a band. And like that was all that mattered. And I would just like chug through the week. So no, like music, I mean, quite literally, like music saves lives. I know that's very like kitschy and everyone says that, but it's like, it's so true. Like I don't know where I would be without it in this quarantine.
Yeah, me too. I mean, honestly, I had trauma in my childhood too. And, and even in this last year of losing so many people. And I think that, it's crazy. Like you can't think, you don't think music's going to be that important, but I mean, I did it every day, and it was like, I don't think I could have gotten through quarantine without that. Like I was pretty isolated during quarantine. I didn't have anybody. So it was like, I just turned to what I loved, which was music and doing this. And like, and I think you're right. I think it's the wanting a voice and wanting to have, for me, it was more creating family and like feeling like I belong. And being able to feel like I was in a community where I felt like I was seen. And so that's kind of like part of the reason why I started doing this, was just like being able to have all of that and feel. And then it was like once I started feeling that, and once I started like knowing that I was a part of it, man, I was like, all right, I got this. Good.
Totally. No, I feel that 100% completely. Like like in high school and middle school, I had a lot of like friends, but they were all like, I had like one friend on the soccer team, and like one friend on yearbook, and one friend in the popular group, and like one friend over here. So like I never had like a group of people. And this Seattle music community has felt so much like that. And I really like that really grew in quarantine, honestly, because I had more time to dedicate to it, as opposed to working my like 3 other retail jobs and then doing dance on the side. So it's also cool in that respect, in that like I feel like I've grown to what you were just talking about in the pandemic. And like now that it's coming out in person, it's this whole new thing of like, oh wow, like we can actually be there for each other also like in the flesh.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's a whole different like way to look at relationships and people, and how you see other people through it all, like I've learned so much about all the people I know in my life like through this whole thing. And but the one constant was music. Like the one constant was just like being able to have that as the core, and having all my musician friends as the core, and being able to get through with them. I really don't think I would have been as good, especially in losing my brother. I really don't think I would have been like okay. Because it happened, quarantine literally happened 2 weeks later, and like it was like I had nothing to like deal with anything. So I just made my own thing,
I feel that. I mean, I don't know what it's like to lose a close family member. So I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry that I cannot empathize.
It's okay.
But right before quarantine, I broke up with my partner of 3 years.
Ugh.
I also broke up with my best friend of 6 years, and then had started a new job. So and like literally the Friday before quarantine, like quarantine was a Monday, the Friday before quarantine, I almost got fired from that job. So honestly, quarantine saved my job for that time period that I had it. I was laid off in July and then went into DansTunes full time. But that was the most alone I have ever felt in my entire life. So I very much understand that. Like you need something to do. And that was also the music community for me.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting what, I understand quarantine kind of implies isolation, but like for people like us that are more extroverted, isolation doesn't work, like that's my whole thing. Like I'm like, you want me to not go see people? Like what? I don't even know how to do that. Like
without that, I don't want to think about.
I don't even know what I would have done without it. Like if I had quit in January and not even done it, and not even continued to do it, I'm curious how like shit would have went down all of quarantine, because that was what like that led me into just everything I'm doing now. And so I'm like, shit, if I wouldn't have done it, like where would I be right now? Like I don't know.
Totally. No, I mean, DansTunes quarantine was this great space for DansTunes. I had the time to do it, and I think how do I say this? Like there was a vacuum, even more so in quarantine, right? Like, you know, a lot of newspapers had to, you know, couldn't afford staffers, couldn't afford to talk about music, and it created this vacuum even more so than there was before.
Yeah.
And you know, it created a space to fill, and I'm grateful and you know, blessed that I hate that word because I'm not religious. I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want it to have religious connotation, but like it does, you know, it feels like a blessing, like to be able to to collaborate with people in that time period. Yeah.
How does your family and friends feel about you doing this? You have a lot of support?
That's a good question too. Yes, I do. My friends are definitely very supportive. And I have a lot of people supporting me. Like I said earlier, I'm currently living with like my best friend and her parents because I couldn't pay my rent. And I mean, just for the summer, you know, they're like, you can crash for a couple months to get back on your feet. So, you know, I'm in the process of saving up money to move out, but like, I'm so grateful to have that. Even like my friend who I'm going to move in with after I move here is like really understanding of what I'm doing. And she has a more high paying job. So she was like, if you need me to pay a little bit more in rent while you like figure this shit out, you know, like you can do that. And I was like, you know, I want to pay rent, right? Like, you know that I'm working on it, and like, you know that I like want to pay rent. And she's like, yeah, and like, I trust you. Like, so, you know, it's like, you know, we can start, you know, here and then like kind of move slowly, like as we go to here. So it's really genuinely very, very nice, to have that support. Yeah.
I had it too, like in the beginning. It was mostly, that's when I knew like musicians were my people, because they all were like, why not do that?
Yes.
You know, and I was like,
they see the value in it. Yeah, not everybody sees the value in it, which I think is very difficult, especially like in building funding around it. It's very tricky to communicate why this has value to people who don't understand. You know, people who go to concerts, they're like, yep. And it always feels really weird to me too. Like, I've been applying to grants lately, and it's like, you know, what value does your business have? And I'm like, well, like it, like how do you?
How do I say that? Yeah,
a city's not a city without art, right? Like a city without art is like sewers. Like, you know, but like I've had to work a lot on putting that into words and being like, the value in this is that it creates community, like it creates a place to talk about art. It quite literally has an economic impact, because like I've heard from musicians, like the only reason that, you know, my single, my album, whatever got as many plays was because DansTunes wrote about it. Like, but it's very difficult to convey that to like the business world who may not be entrenched in it like we are. Like, you know, if you're, you know, selling pillows, you're like, yep, like this creates value because like people have to sleep and I'm going to sell pillows. And when it's, you know, music journalism, you're like, well, like it creates value because it puts money in these, you know, these artists' pockets, and it creates conversation, and like conversation is what moves society forward. But I think societal value is much harder to convey in this capitalistic society that we live in.
Yes.
Monetary value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you, what's kind of like you've mentioned a little bit of it, but you know, what's kind of like the future for you, and where do you kind of see yourself in 10 years doing it?
Oh, wow. 10 years. Okay. Normally I do 5. So I'm like,
okay, I'll go with 5. We'll do 5.
You know, I try to take it one day at a time. I'm actually, I took a test, like how good of an entrepreneur test would you be a couple months ago? And I got fairly high in most things.
I was gonna say, did you pass with flying colors?
I got literally 0 in planning. Literally 0, which was a wake-up call. So I'm like currently in the process of learning how to plan better, but I also like have a very anxious personality. So I tend to be like, okay, this one thing, like I tend to put all my eggs in one basket. So it's like, oh, this one thing must succeed or I'm a complete failure, as opposed to like the Martial Law Band attitude, right? Where it's like, well, these 15 things failed, but this one succeeded, so that's awesome, you know? I'm working on being able to like reframe things that way. But I think to that end, I'm like, I do have goals, but I'm also just trying to take it one day at a time, because it's like, I don't want to get overwhelmed. I don't want to be like, whoa, if this one thing fails, like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal for Dance Tunes is that I want to have satellite campuses in major cities all across the country. So there'd be like one major website that's like just all encompassing Dance Tunes. And then there'd be Dance Tunes Seattle, Dance Tunes Portland, Dance Tunes New York, Dance Tunes Boston. Because like local music is so important everywhere. And and local journalism, not just local music. Local journalism is important. Like, God, I could talk about this for years, but so many local papers have been closing because there's not financial support for them. But that's how things make national news. They start locally, people here are talking about them, and then the national papers are like, whoa, that's cool, I should talk about that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of value in that, and that's my main goal. So maybe that is 10 years, maybe 5 years is just having this version be financially stable, so that I can I want to like nomad around the country and set up the new campuses. So like, sorry, Seattle fam, but like I'll probably, maybe I'll come back. Who knows where life will take me. But my goal is to like set this one up and then start kind of like nomading around and setting up the other campuses and really like get a feel for, I'm only 27, like get a feel for where I really do like want to like raise a family and like set up my life, which I'm not interested in at all right now, but eventually.
I love it. I feel that on so many levels. I want to bring LMS to, I'm already international and all over the country. So I feel like I'm in a different kind of way than you are a little bit. And we have different things too, so I feel like it's not the same, but I definitely want to try and branch out to other like major cities too. My main one is like Nashville. I really want to go to Nashville. And
I've never been there, and I want to go so bad. I've never been to Austin. I really want to go. I haven't traveled that much.
I drove from here to Nashville in like 7 days, and man, I love Nashville. Like I didn't want to leave, and I almost didn't. I was like, I might just stay here. And then I realized I don't have a job, so that's kind of hard.
Every single time I go to New York, and somehow I ended up in Seattle. But it's, whatever. It's all good. I love it here too.
I've never been to New York. I want to go there so bad.
Literally every time I've flown home from New York, granted, I haven't been there since high school, but literally every time I've flown home from New York, I've been like, that feeling where you're done with vacation, you're like, man, I'm so excited to sleep in my own bed.
Yeah.
Every time I've been like, man, I'm so excited to sleep in my own bed, but I wish my bed was in New York.
That's how I feel. Can my bed just be in Nashville?
Totally. Yep.
Well, friend, I have so much enjoyed having you on, and guys, go follow Dance Tunes. Please, they're amazing. She's amazing. She's a one-woman show almost. She's got a couple of people that help, but we do this on our own, and we do this because we love music, and she just loves music as much as I do. So I hope you follow her. I hope you tune into her stuff. She actually writes articles. Remember when I used to do that in the beginning? I don't do that anymore. So go to her for that stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah, writing is my bread and butter. That's where that's my main thing.
You're great at it too.
Thank you. Yeah.
I used to do that, and then I was like, no, that's too much. That's too much for me. I don't know.
It's a lot, but I think going back to Bruce Springsteen, like it is. It is the place where I feel the most heard. It's the place where I'm least judged. It's the place where I can just be like, here's what I think. Yeah. And that's it. Like there's no more to it. If you like it, great. If you don't, great. And this is just what I think. Like, if you disagree, great. And we start a conversation. That's rad.
Well, I just love you, friend. And I hope you just succeed and go all over the place because you're awesome.
Yeah, same to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, everybody, please follow her on Instagram. Why don't you tell them all about your socials and stuff?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so the full website is dancetuneseattle.com. NotDansTunes.com. That is currently a Chinese porn site that I am trying to get them to sell to me, but it's a Chinese porn site. So they're like, how much can you pay for this? And I'm like, I don't know how to negotiate with the Chinese porn site. Go to DanceTunes.com. Go to DanceTunesSeattle.com. On Instagram, we're at DanceTunesSeattle. On Facebook, we're at DanceTunesSeattle. Twitter is at DanceTunesC, like Seattle, not the letter. If you do want to support financially, patreon.com/DanceTunesSeattle, or if you just want to throw us like $3 to $1 million at DanceTunesSeattle on Venmo, $1 million preferably. I'm 100% joking. Yeah, like if you want to give us $1 million, like please, I will take it. But really, just I appreciate everyone who reads or like follows us on Instagram or listens to our podcast or anything. Like we are here for the community, and if what you can give is your time and attention, that is more than enough.
Amazing. So. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming in and popping in and joining in. If you're seeing this after, be sure to leave some comments, and I'm sure she'll be back on the show because she's awesome, and I'll make sure I do have her back. We might even get you to sing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm here for it.
So everybody have a great night, and we'll talk to you later.